So, there's this thing called depression, and we're going to talk about it. A couple of things prompted this, and one of those was Say So. It's a thing at the church that I don't know who installed it, but God bless whoever did, because it's encouraged me to do this. It's where members of the church will come before the congregation and tell a little about their history with Christ, how they came to know Him, their walk with Christ, etc. For some inane reason, I felt like God was tugging at my heartstrings to get me to tell my story, and I didn't really know what my story was. It's kind of unique to me. It doesn't mean anything to anyone else but me, so I didn't think it was really a story I could tell. Another issue is that I have extreme anxiety, and going before the church is kind of a no. And I don't mean stage fright. I mean, my heart will literally drop into my shoe if I even think for a moment that some random stranger's trajectory is even indicating slightly that they are going to come talk with me. I was in Panera the other day, and I felt someone was walking towards me, and I just had this complete fear that they were going to say hi. As I don't mind talking to people, I love talking to people. It's just it's an irrational fear. It's anxiety. That's what it is. It's not rational. Ugh. Put me on the register at work with actual people and ask me to juggle both math and people, and I will be in a panic attack for the rest of the day. Woo! Anyway, thought since I'm friends with most of my family, I just share here. And I figured I could record, clip, and edit where needed, and then one or two of my friends would like it, and we could all get on with our day. But then news of Robin Williams' suicide came out. I don't think I've been sad about a celebrity's death since Steve Irwin. Death is always sad, but he was a big part of my childhood. I grew up with Mork and Mindy. Who knows me knows I love animation, and I fell in love with the characters of Batty and the Genie, Centennial Man, Hook, Jumanji, Mrs. Doubtfire, Dead Poets Society. He was just kind of always there in the background of my childhood, and it was almost kind of like that uncle that you never meet but sends you tons of really interesting and fun and zany postcards from his trips around the world. He was like that uncle that you never met, basically. He was awesome. Skimming through the comments and articles and the comments made on these articles, a reoccurring comment kind of came up, and it was stuff like, he was so funny, he seemed so happy, why was he depressed, how could he commit suicide? Depression isn't always feeling or acting sad. I don't know why it's hard for people to understand, especially Christians, because we have something called joy. It's an ever-present God-given force that propels us through these tough times. And we do get sometimes. We fall into despair, but still joy remains. Despair is kind of just a stumble. We don't live in it. The thief of joy. Doesn't mean you'll never be happy again, because you will. You will have your good days. You'll laugh and you'll feel happy, bouts of happiness. Depression is a killer and a silent one because it doesn't get you when everyone's around. It gets you when you're alone, when you're trying to get up in the morning, when you're trying to go to sleep and you're left with nothing but your irrational thoughts. Depression, it takes you and keeps you down in some small corner of yourself where no one can see. It doesn't want anyone to see, and in turn you don't want anyone to see. It is a silent killer because no one wants to talk about it. I do. About depression because there are still people who say that people who commit suicide are selfish, because people make comments like, but they were so happy, because there are still people who tell people with depression to get over it, that they have nothing to be sad about. I struggle with depression. I have since I was 14 years old. It's not something I can just get over. It's been a constant companion for most of my young adult life. I've had ups and I've had downs. At my lowest point, there wasn't really anything anyone could say or any one thing that I could use to get out of it. Depression doesn't always have a stressor or a reason, and when mine did, there were times it would just sneak up on me. Like I'd be doing really well. I think I was doing great, and then I'd be doing the dishes, singing along to Disney, and then the next second I would be on the ground asking God why. Why was I feeling this way? Why did I feel useless and depressed and alone and like there was nothing for me? When I knew better, I did. But I felt that way and I couldn't stop it. My mind would tell me that I was sad, that everything was awful, and all these other things. And it's kind of like a weight on your shoulders that never really goes away. Anyone can have depression. Anyone. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or your age. Depression is sort of a catch-all term. There's different types of depression, but they're all pretty much diagnosed when the sufferer experiences prolonged episodes of extreme malaise. But depression is like a big blanket of exhaustion, sadness, it just covers everything. It's the darkness that blankets everything when the sun goes away. When the sun is out, there are still bits of darkness, but they're insignificant compared to the sun, to the glory of the sun. And then when night falls and there isn't any sun, you live in darkness. There are stars in the moon, but they're all small in comparison. The difference between joy and depression is the difference between the sun and the moon. And it's actually, starting yesterday was WSPD, and it's World Suicide Prevention Day. Tomorrow is the actual day, but this is the week of, and I knew it was coming. And so in addition to the whole Say So thing, and then Robin Williams, and this, and the fact that the campaign this year for TWOLA, To Write Love on Our Arms, it's an organization against suicide and depression and all that stuff. It raises awareness and funds for treatment. But the campaign this year is No One Can Tell Your Story. So it all kind of came together, and it was perfect. So not only, so at the beginning I kind of thought it a little bit, but as things fell into place, it kind of clicked that when God was asking me to tell my story, He wasn't telling me to tell my story about His walk with Him, because it is unique, it is something important, but it's only important to me. And this is really important. Depression is no laughing matter. It affects a lot of people. It affects, I think it's something like 19 million people a year. In a year will suffer from depression, either the kind that lasts for months and years like mine, or people who will suffer it for a couple of weeks. And it doesn't really matter how long you suffer it. It's in varying degrees for everyone, and everyone deals with it differently, and it manifests itself differently. With me, it was the constant sadness. It was the constantly feeling alone. It was the staying up really late, doing things to make sure that I was super, super tired, that when I did fall asleep, I wouldn't have any time to be left alone with my thoughts. I hated just laying in bed because I couldn't sleep. Part of depression, a lot of times, is you have insomnia, which is awful because you're just sitting up thinking about, you're left with your thoughts of suicide and when to do it, how to do it. About suicide a lot. Again, how to do it, when to do it. I was 17 in my senior year when I decided that I wasn't going to make it to 18. It was also the year that I got a framed picture with my face in it, with stuff that others written about me on it. School classmates and I each turned into a senior photo of ours. I didn't have one, so I sent in this little wonderful thing. And while everyone else was class and beauty, I was just this crazy, goofy chick with her mouth open and looking ridiculous. But it was the happiest photo I had. So, yeah, They sent these pictures out to the different classes, and we got them back, and they had thoughts about us on them, like one word sentences about what they thought about us, and mine was the general consensus was that I was funny, happy, vibrant. But super cute, like 2 P's, not one, so it was super cute, not super. Okay. Other person put chill. No, I don't know where you got that from. Fun to be around and full of life. And the truth was, I was severely depressed. That's why when I see comments about how people are shocked that someone like Robin Williams could commit suicide, I get a little upset. It appears that unless you are a caricature of your mental illness, your problem isn't worth addressing, and it's not real. But it is. It's worth addressing. Depression is a real thing and it affects so many people, and I want to thank Pastor Mike for taking the time to address it. The Sunday after Robin Williams' death, he changed the focus of the message to talk about depression and suicide, and it meant the world to me. If anything good has come out of this, it's that there's a big stir right now. People are paying attention, people are looking into it. Awareness is growing, and that's key in fighting depression, is awareness and talking about it. I was just going to talk about how I came to know Christ and my walk with Him, and I wasn't going to say anything about my depression, but that would have been a disservice to a lot of people, because my depression, my life with depression has it's brought me closer to God, and it's as much a part of my story as anything else. I grew up in the church, and I would say that Christ has always been my Savior, but it wasn't until I was about 11 that I knew my Lord. It's because there's a difference. Knowing Christ as your Savior, accepting the gift of salvation, and making Him your Lord. So glad that I did, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't be here. It wouldn't have been selfish. I mean, the act itself is selfish, but when you're depressed, you are not yourself. You are not thinking clearly. There's something mentally wrong, and you're not thinking. I look back and I see things I wrote when I was depressed, and I do not recognize myself. I'm scared for that person. There's no logic there, nothing. And that's why it's such a miracle that I'm here, because even in the grips of depression, when I was so ready to give up, God gave me the sound thrashing that I needed to keep going. God helped me through my depression, and I've told people before that I struggle with depression, but now I'm making it public. Is that talking about it will empower someone else. I know I'm not a celebrity or anything really important, but it's just hearing other people talk about it makes me want to talk about it, because I feel like I can, and that's something I want to do. Is I want to remove the stigma of depression and talking about it. You're not a Debbie Downer if you talk about it. You aren't killing the mood. If these people that you surround yourself with care, then they're not going to care that you talk about it. They want to help, and that's one of the things about depression, is you isolate yourself. You feel alienated from everyone, and you don't feel like you can ask for help. And I want to tell you that you can. If you have depression, or someone you know has depression, talk about it. You have to have other people. People need people. That's actually a slogan from Twola as well, and it's very true. In depression and fighting depression, people need people, and you need God. That's something you need. It is. I can't imagine that I would have made it without Him. I can't imagine I would have made it without the people that He put in my life towards the tail end of this year and before. That's pretty much it. But yeah, that's it. I'm sorry. I'm a bit of a mess. God be with you. Praying for all of you. Y'all are all awesome. Stay alive, Godspeed, all that stuff.